For Friday, August 2nd. I'm Adam Polishati. The ICE Futures canola market is showing gains on Friday morning amidst mixed sentiment in comparable oils. European rapeseed and Malaysian palm oil are higher to start the day. However, Chicago soy oil is down, and crude oil is taking another sharp drop for the second time in 3 days. The Canadian dollar is steady compared to Thursday's close. The November canola contract is up $5.40 per ton at $614.20. In the U.S., corn, soybeans, and wheat are all on the rise. The U.S. Department of Agriculture reported 442.35 million bushels of corn were used for ethanol production during the month of June, slightly greater than in June 2023, but down by 2.9% from May. StoneX projected Brazil's total 2024-25 corn crop at 123.14 million tons, 1.6 million tons more than the projected total for 2023-24. It also expects the U.S. corn crop to have an average yield of 182.3 bushels per acre for 15.207 billion bushels of production. The September corn contract is up 1 U.S. cent per bushel at $3.83. The USDA reported the country's soybean crush for June totaled 183.7 million bushels, on the lower end of trade expectations and down 4.24% from May. However, the total was still 5.23% above a year ago. Soy oil stocks were down 2.9% from May to June, but were still above estimates at 2.12 billion pounds. One day after announcing the sale of 133,355 tons of U.S. soybeans to China for delivery in the 2024-25 marketing year, the USDA announced today another sale of U.S. soybeans to China, this time at 201,393 tons. StoneX estimated the Brazilian soybean crop at 165.05 million tons, 16 million more than the previous year. For the U.S., it also projected an average yield of 52.6 bushels per acre for 4.483 billion bushels of production. The November soybean contract is up 10 U.S. cents per bushel at $10.26. France's wheat crop was 67% harvested, while at a crop rating of 50% good to excellent, according to France Agrimaire. However, Strategy Grains cut its estimate for France's soft wheat crop by 4.1 million tons, at 25.6 million with low test weight reported. Taiwan purchased 105,000 tons of U.S. wheat for October shipment. The September Chicago wheat contract is up 2 U.S. cents per bushel at $5.34. The September Kansas City hard red wheat contract is up 1 U.S. cent per bushel at $5.56. The September Minneapolis spring wheat contract is up 9 U.S. cents per bushel at $5.97. That's a look at the ICE futures in U.S. markets for Friday, August 2nd. In Winnipeg for MarketsFarm.com, I'm Adam Polishati. Have a great long weekend.
Put the unbeatable combination of power and utility to work with a New Holland Power Star Series tractor from Butler Farm Equipment in Fort St. John. In 5 models, from 65 to 100 PTO horsepower, a Power Star tractor handles jobs in the backfield, barnyard, and everywhere in between. Best-in-class cab visibility and outstanding comfort will increase your productivity. Choose the factory-installed loader that best matches your daily needs. Stop by Butler Farm Equipment in Fort St. John today.
The opinions expressed on this show do not represent those of the station. If you've missed any of the shows, you can follow the podcast at Energeticcity.ca. Welcome to This Week in the Peace, a show dedicated to the people, events, and news of BC's Peace region. Here's your hosts, Dub Craig and Steve Berard.
Welcome to This Week in the Peace. Homelessness has been a bit of a hot topic in the community lately, with a lot of discussion surrounding people living in tents in downtown areas of the city. Today's guest, and there is only one guest today, is Trevor Bolin, a member of council and of Fort St. John's newly formed Homelessness Committee, here to discuss the issue and what the city is doing to address it. Trevor, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Thank you for making some time. So to begin today, Trevor, walk me through some of the issues that have just arisen over the last couple of weeks. I remember in June there was a tent fire. I know that over the last little while, a group of tents were moved from the old Fort Hotel property. Just walk me through the situation over the last few weeks.
You know what? It's been a trying couple weeks. I think not only for our bylaw staff, but for residents as well, and some of the safety concerns they've had. So I mean, this really started last year.
Right.
So you know, if we go back to kind of last summer, where there was a lot of camping happening in the parks and in some of the right-of-ways and whatnot. Council at that point in time had requested a bylaw to be written. You know, part of it where that came from is I actually found that in a community in Alberta that had bylaws that were similar to this one, and we had a lot of pushback. We had pushback provincially. We had pushback from some of the groups down south, and even the Human Rights Commissioner advised us to back off. So we backed off, and now we've seen in the last couple of weeks, the last month or so, things are continually getting worse. They're getting more worrisome. The 100th Ave by the old Shaw building there, the old Hellman Sons lots, those quickly went from 1 tent to 13 tents.
Right.
And what really ended that one when staff got heavily involved on the city side of things was a truck actually pulled in there one evening and started spinning donuts in excessive speeds and shooting rocks at the tents and the people that were there. So, it became a large safety issue. And I think as you've seen it, staff go to a site, whether it be the 100th Ave site or whether it be the old Fort Hotel, and are able to move them now, right? There is the possibility on certain lands to be able to give notice to move, but they just move to another site.
Right.
So, right. Is it really doing anything? How many times do we do that? Where we just start the whole process over again, right?
Yeah.
You go through 8 sites. There's only 9 left. Within a month, we're just right back at the beginning again.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me a little bit. I know that I believe it was the last council meeting you guys voted to form a homelessness committee that you were going to be a part of. Tell me a little bit about where the idea for that came from.
So the idea from that came from the meeting before, and I had requested that council consider the idea of me putting together a homeless committee. Now, we're not going to call it that at the end of the day. Mayor and council have a lot of formed and appointed committees, right? Whether it's part of the regional district or whether it's pool commissions, these different seniors, these different aspects of committees that are formed in order to better the community. So, I was looking at the ability to try to fast track some of the things government does, because there's nothing about government that's fast.
Yeah, of course.
Right. I mean, it's painfully slow. So staff are busy. Fort St. John's growing. Parks are expanding. Everything's getting bigger. We're not hiring more staff. We're trying to utilize, what we have. So for us to then say, here's another project for you. Here, we need you to fast track this. We want this at the next meeting.
Yeah.
That was unreasonable. And I think it sets us up for failure in trying to expect that. So, I asked Councillor McDougall and Councillor Clausen if they would join me on the committee, because Sarah has vast experience with the science behind health, and mental health and the whole health side of things. Gord has extensive knowledge and experience on the provincial side.
Right.
Other municipalities, I can honestly say Gord goes away and learns more than I do. So, honestly, it was how we could put this together. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to be able to talk to stakeholders. We're going to be able to look at other communities. We're going to be able to deal with the provincial government and then deal with our staff. We've got a phenomenal bylaw team. We've got a new bylaw manager, and again, we want to set them up for success at the same time that we set this committee up. So we'll now be able to gather that information that staff shouldn't have to, and be able to present that back and say, hey,
right.
You know what? Here's what we've learned, and it's already happening. And I think that's the most important thing is we're days into a committee even being struck in, and we're already having people reaching out saying, listen, this is what you need to know. This is what you need to look at.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great to hear. Can you tell me a little bit, because I know that they only, like you said, this is only days old. Walk me through a bit of what the timeline looks like, because I remember there was some discussion that they need to come with terms of reference, things like that. Walk me through what the timeline's going to look like.
So we're going to meet right now. Right now, staff have the terms of reference to review. So again, I mean, I've been on city council for 16 years, and to see the staff come together like they have in a few different departments to make this happen is phenomenal. And,
right.
And I mean, not to say that it doesn't happen, but just to see something fast tracked like this makes me happy. It impresses me. So, what we're going to see next is we're going to see myself and Sarah and Gord are going to get together. We're going to have a conversation with our new bylaw manager, our CAO. Bonnie's going to be there. I mean, we're going to have the entire team to be able to put these terms of reference together. those are then going to go forward, so that this is not a 1 month committee. This is not, here's 10 ideas, let's see what sticks. This is going to be a committee that's based on housing, not just homelessness, for the entire community for the length of time that it's needed. So, you know what I mean? Whether it's, a lot of the comments became, well, why aren't you dealing with some affordable issues too? Well, you know what? We probably will, and we certainly can.
Yeah.
But right now, we're going to deal with what's all over Facebook and all over the news, right? Which is the homeless issue and the tent issue, especially with the bylaw coming out right away.
Yeah. Speaking of that bylaw, I know you said that this was something you guys started working on last year. The Human Rights Commission got involved. Tell me a bit about what the process for that has looked like and what that bylaw looks like now.
So, yeah, you know what? It was I believe it was last September. I did it the same way I've done this committee. We bring a notice of new business so that there's no surprises. We have a no surprise rule in council where, if you're going to bring something forward, at least give a heads up, some time to converse about it. So, and that works the best. So I don't care what kind of committee it is, that always works the best. But we did the exact same thing. So when this got brought up last time, it was just before a majority of the members of council were going to the UBCM. I did not attend the UBCM. It was down south, and the ethics, or not the ethics commissioner, sorry, the human rights commissioner actually met with council and the CAO down there,
right,
to convey that very strong message that I was out of bounds, which was okay, because sometimes you got to go a little bit out of bounds, and that's when you really start to find the solutions at work, right? So you know what I think the issue is? I think the issue with the bylaw at that time was that we were making this all-encompassing bylaw that just said, listen, you can't camp, which is still going to happen. But the reason I've struck in the committee is so that they happen together. Because if we don't know what the problem is, we can't find the solution. If we can't find the solution, we can't fix the issue. So these two together, we needed a bylaw that says, listen, you can't camp here. And it's not just what we're seeing. I mean, you know what? You and the kids want to camp in the yard? Whatever, right? I mean, nobody is going to, I mean, I think I spent a majority of my time in a tent in the backyard, but, nobody's going to condone that. But, when we're seeing it more of a safety issue, when you're camping in commercial zoning downtown, right? Different things like that, especially the one that we've seen on 100th Ave. So these now in conjunction. So the biggest thing is that Bill 45 provincially tells us that unless there is no space in a shelter, unless there's space in a shelter, you cannot remove encampments. But that doesn't address the issue. So the issues we have is there is space in the shelter. I can tell you right now, in my latest research, already jumping the gun on the committee, there's 10 beds in the shelter, right? So say there's 10 beds in the shelter, and say we have 40 tents around town, right? I'm just going to use that as a round number, or just as a guess. The problem is there's 10 vacancies because 8 of those 40 in a tent are probably banned from the Salvation Army, right? Or they don't want to be there. They legit don't want to be there. So it's okay to say then, well, tell them to get off that site. But like we said in the beginning, they're just going to go to another site. So we need to figure out, is it a housing issue? Is it an operational issue? We don't operate the Salvation Army. We don't even fund the Salvation Army on the city side, right? The Salvation Army is operated by the Salvation Army organization in co-ownership with BC Housing, right? Which is provincial. So, you know what? By the time we find all these moving pieces and put them together, this bylaw is going to be as much about the committee as it is about the bylaw.
Yeah. So you say this bylaw is going to stop people from camping. Can you walk me through some of the more specific terms of that, just what specifically that means? I know you mentioned if, mom and dad and the kid want to camp in the yard, that's fine. Yeah. Tell me a bit about just sort of the exact specifics of this, if you can.
Absolutely. So, that became, there was a big question last September on Facebook of people going, wait a minute, like, this isn't a police state.
Yeah.
Why are you telling me what I can and cannot do? And we're not telling you what you can and do. Camping in campgrounds has always been legal.
Right.
Camping in parks has always been illegal. So, but we've never had signs up. We've never had anything like that. You go to a lot of communities and you'll go into a park there and it says no overnight camping, no tents, We've never done that. We've never gone to that extent because we've never had to.
Yeah.
Right. So we've seen larger communities deal with this. We've never had to deal with that. So when we look at what this bylaw is going to mean, so this bylaw states that, or will state that, you cannot camp in soft sides. You cannot camp in hard sides outside of designated campgrounds. So what we'll end up doing is once the bylaw is done, that actually gives us the ability to then say, listen, you need to move. And if you don't move, then we end up with the police, right? So, when they were moved from the site on the old Fort Hotel site there earlier in the week, one of the things was is staff had actually given them notice the week before, asking them to vacate the property because that is not a park. That is a city-owned property that is going to be redeveloped. Once we sell it or when somebody comes for development of it. They are then not allowed to be there. So, But again, we know they're just going to go a block away or 2 blocks away. So it's kind of like how do you manage that? So from there, we now have the ability to have the RCMP come if things are not going the way they should be going. This actually gives the municipality its own laws to deal with this, and part of it too is when the province then came back and said, listen, you actually can't do that. You can't do what you think you can do. They tell us that all the time. But it's like, and you know what? It's not then about being reactive and trying to push something through. It's about going, okay, well, you know what? Here is what we can do. Here's what you tell us we can't do. This is the ground we want. Right? I know radio listeners can't see my hands, but that was in the middle. Is that middle ground that we want so that we can actually figure out what's going to benefit the community, because regardless of what provincial legislature is, and regardless of what even our own thoughts as council is, at the end of the day, this bylaw is about protecting the community, protecting the residents in the community, and protecting those in the tents. Because I think as people get angrier and we see the comments on Facebook, and there's a lot of people that are very open about commenting harmful things, online, because I think that shows not that they're a bad person, but it just shows that they're frustrated, and it shows that they don't see anything being done. Right. And as much as I see stuff being done every day, because it's nonstop emails and text messages and working with bylaw and working with the province. And that's not even considering the committee or any of that. That's just council's day-to-day operations of everything that is affecting the community. So, we see it every day. Sometimes we forget to share that information. And I think that's where the frustration comes from. So for sure, bylaw will help that. The committee will help that. And of course, just us continuing, we have a great relationship with you guys when it comes to our council corner and being able to share, the different things we do. This show, for example, is how we ensure that the public don't get frustrated, or if they are, then they can at least understand the process that we're doing to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking a little bit about sort of possible solutions to this issue. I know that one solution, we're sort of getting a little low on time, but one solution that was getting floated at one point that I remember you responded to on social media, someone proposed the idea of creating a fenced off encampment area for homeless people, similar to one that exists in Smithers. And I believe you said that was being reviewed. Is that still in the cards? And if not, why?
It has been reviewed, and I'm not saying it's out of the cards, because that's actually what the province has been suggesting to communities is don't say this is a campground. Don't rezone it to a campground, but don't say that you disallow camping. Right. So it is and it isn't. You're not allowing it, but you're not disallowing it. I think they're doing that to get around zoning issues. They're doing that to get around insurance issues. They're doing that to get around safety issues. It's not going to fix the problem, because we're Fort St. John.
Yeah.
Right. It's getting a little bit cooler. The nights are getting a little bit cooler. We know what's coming. The folks that you're seeing are not what you see on Facebook, where they've just arrived into town, right? I made a post about the old Fort Hotel site, and I referred to Mike. Mike was the resident that was there that was moved. Mike has lived here for 40 years. The other gentleman in the tent that was near Mike has lived here for 28 years. So they know what's coming. They know winter's coming, right? So yes, an enclosed sort of neat and clean encampment area would help. I think it would stop them from segregating all throughout the community. But I think too, what you'd find is I don't really know if that would fix the issue where some of the ones that say Walmart right now. Walmart has the largest amount of tents now because 100th Ave has moved down to Walmart. They put a tent in Matthews Park. You take Mike for an example that was on this end. He didn't want to be part of that larger homeless encampment community, and I think that's safety reasons unto themselves from being down there. Not only the safety issues from an outside frustration part, but so. And until we figure out what's broken. So, what I've learned in the last few days is I've learned that a housing shortage right now is a major issue. Right. Not an affordable, but an actual low barrier where they're not evicted from, where they don't have to be in a tent. So, as the committee now, so I've had conversations with 3 or 4 stakeholders that have said, listen, here's the issues that we're faced with. Here's probably what you want to look into. So, that's now where we're going to go. We're going to meet as a committee and say, here's the information we've gathered. Let's get more of this. What are other communities doing? Is it working for Smithers? And yes, we're very BC centric because of the community charter, but you look at Grand Prairie too, right? Grand Prairie 3 years ago purchased a hotel, moved a lot of their homeless residents into hotels. Charlottetown and PEI, for an example, right now I had a conversation with folks from there. They've done a low barrier shelter style that you check in at 8 p.m. The gates are locked. You then vacate by 7 a.m. And that's sort of another option we've got. So, we've got all of these options. I want to know what's going to work best.
Right.
I want to know what is going to fit for you. At the end of the day, the cities in BC are not equipped to deal with housing, education, health, mental health, addictions. Those are all provincial ministries. So the province is basically downloading all of this on us, and they get away with it because are you going to complain to the minister, and are they going to listen in Victoria, or are you going to see me grocery shopping or uptown, and you're going to say, Bolin, right? What are you doing about this, right? So we end up dealing with it, and it's not fair to taxpayers, both municipally and provincially. But I think it's time to go, okay, you know what? They're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And they've done nothing. We have been on them for years about doing this. You don't got to look any further than Vancouver. They walk by most of those encampments every day, and the province still hasn't done anything. So,
right.
We need to do something. What that absolutely looks like at this point in time, right now, it's the committee and it's the bylaw. Because we know, I know from dealing with my own personal life, my father was homeless for quite some time. He lived in, now there's buildings there, but there used to be bushes there, and he was an addict for a very, very long time. So, a lot of the issues in dealing with him is kind of where, I think where I've stemmed from having a bylaw that doesn't allow it, but having a committee to figure out the problem why. So, right, whether that issue is, like I said, housing, whether it relates back to addictions, whether it's mental health, whatever that looks like, we're not going to wait for the province to deal with it anymore. We're going to deal with it in the Fort St. John style that we always deal with things, which is get her done.
For sure, absolutely. Last question for the day here, really quickly. If people have ideas that they want to bring to the committee, or maybe they want to speak with you directly about that, how can they go about doing that? Where should they go?
It's a good question. I think, honestly, we've already seen that taking place, and I think that's what I love about Fort St. John is where they'll see posts or they'll see something, and they immediately will reach out. And I think that is huge. So, honestly, I say it all the time, but if you ever want to reach out to council, it's council@fortstjohn.ca. All members get it, right? All 7 of us get that. And then if you want to email us directly, it's our first initial last name at fortstjohn.ca. Or, of course, there's the good old Facebook Messenger, which is, I think, what most people use when they see something, because it's that moment. I just read something that I've got a comment on or something, and boom, they send a message. And you know what? That's what we need, because it is honestly going to take all of us to fix the issue and to continue to ensure that this issue's fixed forever.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for your time today, Trevor.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Of course, and thank you for tuning into This Week in the Piece. You can listen to this show again by checking out the podcast at Energeticcity.ca/podcast. We'll store this and future episodes of the show there as we make them. Also, check out our other locally produced podcasts, Before the Piece and Secrets of the North as well. That's our show. I'm Steve Berard, and for Dub Craig, be well.
Join us again next Friday morning at 10 for another edition of This Week in the Piece, your weekly talk show dedicated to the people, events, and news of BC's Peace Region. Or you can listen to this podcast again at Energeticcity.ca.
When it comes to iPhones, most people think you can't replace a battery.